Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the DeLeo Senior Center. In accordance with the town charter, we meet twice a year in a forum type of scenario. The spring is about finance. Presentation by the town manager, and you'll be able to ask questions. So without further ado, I will introduce our town manager, Faison.
Thank you, Ron. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me again. For those who were there for my budget presentation a little over a month ago, some of this may be redundant, but we do have updates on some materials that I'm excited to go through. And again, I very much so have wanted this budget process to be a public and open process. The Finance Commission has been working in tandem with the Town Council to have meetings with department heads to discuss individual items from the department head level. And department heads have been coming in front of the Town Council as well to advocate for their needs and discuss what they're discuss what they are looking to do in the coming fiscal year. So I'm very excited about the amount of transparency that has been followed through with so far in this budget process. There's still a fair amount of time to go and more meetings to be had, but it is going well so far. And I wanted to thank all of my department heads and the council and the Finance Commission for engaging in this process. In addition, the budget remains up on the town website as proposed by my office. And at the end of May, the Finance Commission will be offering their recommendations, and my office, along with the Finance Department, will be updating numbers concerning the House budget and the Senate budget as proposed. Hopefully those are good numbers and more money for the town to spend, but we are moving along at a good pace in this process, and everything that we talk about here and we've talked about along the way is available for the public to interact with. Going forward from there, so just to go over the same highlights that we had previously, there's the front cover of our budget with a great picture from one of our residents. 2.3 million in growth, fiscal 20 versus fiscal 19. And again, the three primary categories that is going towards is 1, fixed costs, 2, the school department, and 3, municipal town departments. Coming from my office and from the town council, there are multiple policy issues and initiatives. Some of those we'll have some updates for tonight. First being the center business district, number 2 being the middle school site, number 3 being a town-wide master plan and Winthrop, Win 2030, which is a visioning document for hopefully coming out later this year. And the last item is the technology initiative, which I'm not hitting on tonight, but we are looking to spend money on web-based applications so that we can better interact with the community and provide a higher level of service from people to interact with both at home and in town hall, and it will help town hall be a little bit more transparent. So our state aid update is based off of the House Ways and Means budget, and to go from there, I'm actually going to invite the CFO, Anna Friedman, up here to discuss some of the changes that we've had since the initial budget presentation a month ago when we only had the governor's budget proposal.
So the budget process at the state starts when the governor submits his proposal to the legislature in January, and then the House puts forward its proposal in April, which we now have some preliminary numbers for, and then the Senate will present their budget in May. The two then will reconcile that through a conference committee process in June. So we won't have final numbers until the governor signs the budget at the end of June, early July. However, we do have some updated numbers based on what the House Ways and Means Committee has put forward, which is preliminarily some good news, hopefully, for the town in terms of some additional resources that the budget that Austin has presented did not necessarily take into account because that was not reflected in the governor's budget. And so those numbers are in a couple different places. Our Chapter 70 money, which goes to support the schools, is increasing by about $59,000 compared to what the governor had proposed. Typically, the past couple of years, the Senate does even better on that number, and then the conference committee usually falls somewhere in the middle of that. So if past practice holds, there should be some additional money, hopefully, available for the schools. However, the town does pay some funding to send students that go to charter schools or or school choice program. The governor's budget had proposed a huge increase to the assessment that the town has to pay for that. However, the House budget actually eliminates that increase and has even a decrease over what the town was paying last year. So that would additionally free up some additional money if that holds true for the remainder of the budget process at the state. I'm looking into some additional information about why that number has increased by $100,000 in what the governor had proposed, but now is decreasing by about $24,000. So looking for more information there, but hopefully the number is more in line with what the House is now proposing and not with what the governor had proposed, because that will allow some meaningful additional resources. Additionally, on the negative side, the funding that we do then send to charter schools, there is a reimbursement portion that comes back from the state based on a formula. The House budget would reduce what we would be getting by about $20,000 from what we had assumed based on the governor's number. However, the other two numbers are large enough that more than offset that. So overall, the House Ways and Means budget would be a positive development for the town should those numbers hold true, by about $178,000 potentially. So hopefully the state will only go up from there, providing additional resources for both the school and the town.
Let me grab my book.
So just to reiterate what Anna said, thank you very much, Anna, for that. We're looking at right now an additional $178,000 that we will be able to utilize between municipal departments and town department, and school department. Now, just to look at this as a proper part of how we broke it down with fixed costs, school department and municipal departments, the charter school spending tuition we have as a fixed cost, not as part of the school department budget. The Chapter 70 is part of the school department budget. So that change of approximately $110,000 in charter school spending tuition and charter tuition reimbursement, right now his interpretation is that we could utilize that for both town municipal departments and the school department. How that money gets allocated is still to be determined, but that said, exciting news to have approximately $180,000 additional dollars to use in the next fiscal year. Moving on from there, the Center Business District, where we have had multiple discussions and we will continue having discussions. As of right now, with the current infrastructure project, it looks as if, depending on the bid process and getting all of our ducks in a row, that construction would project to begin in August of this year. My managers committee that I convened has provided critical input throughout the process since January and have helped make this into a single project which includes the surface work. And going forward, there will continue to be public meetings and continuous public outreach throughout the process to keep the community informed about the project status, project phasing, road closures, and all of the different issues associated with this infrastructure project. Now, to extrapolate a little bit on the work of the managers committee that I convened and also our re-engagement with Foreman Place concerning the zoning in the Center Business District, I'd like to invite the Assistant Town Manager, Dave Rodriguez, up here to give some additional information on that.
Thank you, Austin. We're all very excited to work so hard on the Center Business District project, as well as the zoning questions that have been outstanding for quite a while. Speaking to the Town Managers Committee, the committee itself is finalizing its report now to give to the manager sometime late this week or early next week. That will include all the charges that were placed before it, including a comprehensive peer review of all the engineering work that was done, an updated financing plan, a phasing plan, which will tell the public exactly what they can come to expect in the following construction seasons, as well as some additional information and some recommendations from the committee in order on how to proceed, including a pretty robust public process that will inform the town as to any changes that are happening, as well as any parking changes, any traffic pattern changes, and any other issues. Police chief, the fire chief, and all other stakeholders will be engaged as part of that process to make sure that we maximize the project to the greatest extent, but also minimize the impacts to the greatest extent possible. I do want to recognize Councilor Christopher, who's been spearheading a placemaking initiative as part of that process in terms of, so to kind of buoy the business resiliency. We recognize that there are businesses down there that will have to continue to work as we're digging up the streets and improving the infrastructure. So we want to support those businesses in any way possible. And Councilor Christopher brought some great ideas to the table and how to do that. For the zoning question, that's always been a question. No matter what, any meeting that I attend, I always get the question regarding the zoning. The team, the working group that we put together has been working very hard to develop what we think is a very balanced approach to avoid some of the big confusions and questions that have been asked since I got here, since the first day I got here. So we are expecting to have draft maps tomorrow that we're going to be able to look at. And we're going to engage with the planning board to get those before the public as soon as possible, where they'll be able to interact with the maps, share their thoughts on them, interface with them, ask questions, share their perspectives, and really be part of the public process. So we're engaging with the planning board in order to do that and make sure that this public process is truly a public, open one and a transparent process. We're excited for the hard work. Foreign Place is working very hard. Town attorney is working very hard, and we're taking a look at, as long as we're taking a look at it, we're going to try to solve all the problems we can in the short amount of time that we can. So we're going to have something for the council. Spoke with Councilor Boncory about this earlier this evening. As soon as we can, we are working as hard as we can to get this before the council and to the manager as soon as possible. So I'm always available after meetings to answer questions, and I'm happy to tonight as well. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you very much, David. Again, as David mentioned multiple times, this will be a public and open process. My office is not going to be deciding on the maps that are selected. We are going to do that through the planning board, and we will have an open and public process with many public meetings concerning the topic so that the community can interact with these maps and a map is not put upon them. They get to engage and choose the map that they feel is most effectively representative of the zoning for that area of town. Moving forward, the middle school site. So what we are doing in my office right now is we have had our outside legal counsel doing title research, and I have had the town treasurer, who's also our procurement officer, engage in assessing all surplus equipment that is still within the school. There's a fair amount of relatively decent condition equipment that the town can't utilize, but we're trying to get it out of the building so the building can be ready to be acted upon when the time comes. We will be engaging a request for proposal process in fiscal 20. We just need to get our ducks in a row concerning the title research, the things in the building, and then also how we want to inform this process. Previously, there was a vote by the council concerning the ice rink, taking the ice rink out of the process for the middle school site redevelopment. We will be putting out an RFP that reflects that language, though we reserve the right to entertain developers that would like to option the rink and give us good ideas for that area as well, congruent upon the idea that there will continue to be an ice rink in effect at somewhere within town at all times. After an extensive community process, we hope to bring a developer on board and to begin the transition of the property. My office has heard it loud and clear from the community that we want this building moved, we want it changed, the current use, and we want to bring some revitalization to it, whether it be residential, commercial. We want the building to be used, and if it's not used, to come down and be built into another building that better serves our community. So that is something that is coming in the near future. We are just doing the research necessary to get out a proper bid so that we will solicit good bids, and we also can get a redevelopment that the whole community can get behind. So the master plan. There's basically two parts to this. First will be what Assistant Town Manager Rodriguez initially referred to as WIN 2030. This will be a visioning document for the next 11 years of the town. What we will try to do is set between 10 and 15 longer term metrics that we want to try to achieve as a town. What my office can do is we can help set some of the parameters, but we will not be choosing the numbers that we're seeking. So we may say we want X number of units of housing by 2030. We want the community to work with us to determine what X number means. Can't necessarily be 0, maybe not 1, but what is the number? If it's not 1,000, is it 100, is it 10, is it 50? What, as a community, can we come together and come to some conclusion about? We will also be talking about things like the performance within our school department, our condition of our roads, the condition of our infrastructure, and things like that. So these are all kind of medium-term goals that we're looking to achieve as a community, but it helps set a vision forward for the community of some of the things that we're trying to seek out. And I've already been engaging with MAPC concerning this. They're very excited to work on this project with us because they have worked on multiple planning documents and visioning documents in the past with Winthrop, and they're excited to work on a concrete visioning document for 2030. Going from there, that will then feed into a townwide master plan project, and that will not be something that can be done in a short period of time. This is something that will take at least a calendar year, if not longer, to go through the longer term visioning of what the community of Winthrop wants for itself in the long term. And this is very important because we need to set the table for everyone who's elected in the future and works for the town in the future of what did we want in 2019, 2020, how did we want to shape the community going forward? Because there will be changes to the community, but we can only guide those changes if we put them down to paper and we basically put our weight behind them in the longer term. So MAPC will also work with us in the initial phases of this. This may and most likely will be something that we will need an outside consultant to also help the community with. These are professionally facilitated conversations and visioning sessions and working through ultimately what I hope ends up with some parcel by parcel zoning across the town, not just in the center business district, so that when people are looking to change their property or develop something on their property, or a developer comes to town and wants to do something, it will be clear as day in our zoning documents what they can do on that property, as well as they can look at our master plan and understand the vision that Winthrop has set for itself going forward. That is what is most important to me, is having the community come together and decide its vision for the future. And if I am kind of speaking honestly about my time in government, is that I want to engage with the public about these processes. It is not good for things to just come out of my office. I'm not the mayor. I wasn't elected by people here. I'm a manager. I'm appointed by the council. The authority lies with the council, and the authority lies with the community, really. And I want the community to be involved in this process and decide the direction that we're going. Winthrop does not have a master plan right now, and it is something that I think is very necessary for the future, so that Winthrop can take the reins of the direction that they would like to steer the town. And I, again, will be beholden to that document, because that will be the document that the town comes together to in some form of consensus in the future. So something that can help with this process potentially, is through the Community Development Block Grant Program. Because Winthrop is a community that is lower than 50,000 people in it, we do not get to interact directly with HUD at the federal level. We will be coordinating through the Massachusetts office. We are basically a smaller scale entitlement community, so this is money that we will be able to utilize if we correctly engage with the process. Ultimately, what I would like to take out of this is to have a community development department that is looking for both community development and economic development within town, consolidate some of our good community processes that we already have concerning the ferry and the rink and E.B. Newton and things like that, where kind of places that the community congregates already and fall into those quasi-government spaces. I would like a fair amount of those things to be centralized in one office and have a planner come out of the process, as well as some type of administrator as well. So that will hopefully be something that comes in fiscal 20. We will be engaging with the office, but again, my office and Dave and Anna as well, and multiple people across the town are constantly looking for additional funding sources to help pay for things within town for resources that are sorely, sorely necessary. So this is a change from my budget proposal. Initially, I had called for a solid waste advisory committee, and in consultation with some different entities and different players in this space, I'm kind of transitioning this into a zero waste initiative. Now, I understand how net zero comes across and zero waste and those types of things, that it seems like a somewhat unachievable goal, but I want to put some weight behind setting metrics that we're looking to achieve again by 2030. This could be something that's in the Win 2030 document, could be something along the lines of Winthrop is looking to reduce its solid waste by 70% by 2030. The way that the town can achieve that is to look at our waste stream differently than we look at it right now. Currently, we have an all-in contract with Capital Waste, thank you, Steve, that expires next year. So this has come up a few times about engagement in this process, and the Finance Commission is interested in it as well. Before we sign another contract, we want to determine how we want our waste handled. So in my mind, it's cutting up our waste into different buckets. One bucket is our recycling. So our glass, our cardboard, our plastics, those types of things. Within that group, plastics, we need to consider, just like the Board of Health move towards a plastic bag ban, there needs to be certain things that we consider removing from the waste stream altogether. Straws, single-use forks, those types of things. Take it under consideration to pursue those, because there is no way to recycle those materials right now. With the cardboard and everything else, if we can actually do dual stream and have cardboard and other recyclables in different streams, we can actually get our materials recycled. There are successes with that right now. When you do single stream, it's very hard right now because you contaminate the different materials. So it's a hard process, but even places in Connecticut are taking on cardboard and things like that from dual stream recyclers within Massachusetts. So you have recycling first. Next part is getting food waste out. That is through composting, and going through the process of potentially entertaining town-wide composting. And that could be small barrels that people put in their kitchens. We could have them picked up at the current corner. They could be something that you bring them to DPW. Again, this is something that a zero waste committee would work on. Then you move from there are textiles, so things like clothing and shoes and jackets, kind of the bulky items that can take up all of a trash bin if you put too many of them in. We need to separate those out as well. So there is a pink bag program where a company will come and provide us basically textile pickup. So people can put a pink bag out with these materials in it, it will get picked up. They just follow the same routes of the trash trucks. If that is not feasible with this community, we can go through things where they have drop-offs at schools, those types of things. That this isn't just the only limited use things when you're trying to put a coat in for a kid during the winter. This is your dirty shirt with holes in it, getting that out of the waste stream as well, because those materials can be reconditioned over time and things can be done with them. So those are 3 items: food, recyclables, and textiles that we want to get out of what's getting put in our trash cans right now. If we can do that, then we really are only looking at 30% of what we're putting in our trash cans right now. But to get to that point, we need to start segmenting up how we deal with our trash. And I know it's a hard conversation to have. I have a grandmother who would probably shake her head at me and tell me I'm not putting things in different bins. It doesn't matter what you tell me, and that is fine. What I really want to try to do is introduce these programs to the whole population and reiterate them in the schools. I learned how to recycle when I was in school, and I can't throw this bottle in the trash. I will find a recycling bin, or I will bring it home with me and put it in the recycling at my house. That is just how I have learned and how I have been brought up. If we start introducing these different programs to kids, they will then, 1, harp on their parents to pursue them, and 2, when they're older and closer to my age, they will not entertain the waste streams the same way that we have over time. So it's really important and there's an education effort to this, but again, we're trying to set goals of longer term to reduce our solid waste, because it's just an economic factor. If we get more things out of these trash trucks, we will be paying less for our trash removal. Full stop. So all of the taking care of the earth is great, but for Winthrop specifically, this can be an economic decision that the more we reduce our trash, the lower our bill will be for solid waste. So I look forward to engaging in this process. The Public Works Director and I just met with the Conservation Law Foundation last week. We have also been kind of in some discussions with DEP at the state about credits that we can get. But there's a lot of work to be done over the next calendar year, but this time next year we will be well on our way to having a new program in place for July 1, 2020. Moving on from there, the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. So we have had multiple discussions about this in public meetings, and I have heard the community call for an audit of the Water Sewer Fund. The Assistant Town Manager has been engaging with the State Auditor's Office concerning the scope of an audit and determining the costs. We have been talking with them about it, and they have a letter that I signed off on today that is coming in their direction, and they know generally what our terms are for that. I have also been in contact with Weston and Sampson concerning a tiered pricing structure that the town could entertain. That said, with a tiered pricing structure, the total bill of the community will still be the same bill. It's just slicing up the bill differently. That can be difficult because it can go the route of a single family home versus a multi-family home, who's taking on the load of these, of how we split it up type of thing. But we are going to pursue the audit with the state auditor's office and engaging with Weston and Sampson to kind of try to build trust back into this system, and also, in my mind, help better inform the community for the long term, so that when we're having these yearly conversations about the water rate, everyone can be informed to kind of the best of my abilities and DPW's abilities when we start publicizing information about the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. The capital improvement plan, excuse me. Forward. So again, critical technology investments, public works investments for new vehicles, and a police vehicle replacement in the next fiscal year. We have $150,000 in pilot funding from Massport to help some large-scale town building repairs and infrastructure improvements and some sidewalk repairs. Then there's also the Winthrop Foundation, which is going to be $500,000 per year for priority capital investments and some items that I am putting on their radar as soon as they convene. They have been appointed. We are just working through them incorporating bylaws and things like that. Hopefully they will be doing that in the very near future. But The main items that I am looking for initially for that would be infrastructure repairs to the library. There's clearly a roof problem there and I want to get it fixed. That's at the top of my list. I should have put second on my list the Cummings Playground, which is probably a 1B to the 1A of the library. And then the residential yard waste facility haul out. We have a decent amount of materials that are there to the tune of about $150,000 of work to get that material out of there. That could be a great place to house an outside entity interacting with our compost and our yard waste. If we have the space for them to interact with it, they can come and run it themselves. So we don't even need to deal with the hauling of it and things like that. So we need to clean it out first, and then we can engage with the process as we start kind of following up on this zero waste initiative. So exciting things to work on. And I'm very excited for the town to start reaping the benefits of the Winthrop Foundation. This is something that was proposed a few years ago, and I am very excited for the foundation to get to the point where they can start doling out this money so we can start spending it, because we have a lot of backlog of projects to do. So something that's happening with the building department as well as, the library department and the town clerk's office is something called Winthrop Engages. And what this is an effort that Diane had come up with concerning growing community engagement. So one way we want to do this is to invite people in to interact with committees, department heads, and our clerk's office and the census and things like that, so they can do things like register to vote, get more information about town committees, talk with the department heads about what happens within their department, and just get more information. What I have seen in other communities is when you move to that community, you can get a new resident packet and you can understand voting dates and school dates and all this, trash days and all that type of stuff. This is a first step in moving in that direction. I want a fair amount of these materials available in my office and the clerk's office and DPW and the schools, so that when there's a new family that comes to town, they can get a binder and it has all of the information about the town in it, because it's not just good enough to say it's on the website. What we want to do is give the people the materials so they can engage with our community. This is going to be held on May 15th at the Cummings School Cafetorium, and it's going to be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. There will be additional information on the town website forthcoming, but this will be reflected in the minutes from the meeting tonight and things like that. But I'm personally very excited about this. In another life, I was a youth voter drive run operator. Registering to vote is one of the most important things to me, and especially engaging with young voters in the 18 to 24 demographics. So this is a great first step on this, and I hope to replicate this on many public events concerning things like Harbor Day, things like I Love Winthrop, and things like that, so that we continue to engage with the public and we show people committees that we have openings on, inform them about work that's being done, some of these special committees that I'm convening, so that everyone can kind of know if they want to pitch in, where they can pitch in, and if there's something specific that they want to work on, how they get in line to be the next person, or at least considered to work on the next project. So I'm very excited to have that happen, and kudos to Diane from the library and Carla from our town clerk's office. So just to kind of circle back, I kind of hit on this before, but the next steps in the budget process, the Finance Commission is currently meeting, and they're meeting every other Tuesday in March, April, and May, so April and May at this point. Department heads have been assigned specific meetings that they will be attending to go over their budgets, and the Finance Commission will present a recommended financial plan, a financial plan with their recommendations to the Town Council by May 30th. Concurrently, the Town Council will have regularly scheduled meetings, and they will include short budget presentations by department heads. These have been around 5 minutes, so they're pretty short and sweet, but again, I want this to be a public process where our department heads have the ability to interact directly with the Town Council and advocate for their interests and discuss what is coming in the next fiscal year. The Town Council will review both my office's proposed budget and the recommendations of the Finance Commission in their 2 meetings in June, and the Town Council will hopefully, I should have put in there, approve a final budget in June, so we can start working in fiscal 20. With that, That's generally my presentation. I'll open it up to questions now. If there are specific questions, I hope I can answer them. If not, we have some department heads here and some other people. So if anyone has any questions, please come up to the microphone. And thank you for your time and for watching and engaging.
Precinct 4. I just wanted to say thank you. As you know, I represent 300 concerned citizens regarding the water rates, and the partnership from yourself with the assistant town manager has been fantastic. As you can imagine, I get a lot of questions, comments, people see me around town or whatever. In fact, this week I had some questions around an old memorandum, and Mr. Rodriguez was happy to work through them with me and share the update that you just shared tonight about the letter that's going to be going to the auditor's office. So much appreciated, and the transparency is phenomenal, and I'm able to at least update people. One question I had about your presentation tonight, are you also looking at usage-based rather, because we don't want to chase businesses out of town, so we charge them a different water rate than others, and we don't want to, there's a lot of landlords, right?
Yep.
It's their cousin that lives, you know, you typically in Winthrop, you'll have, the landlord on the first floor and the tenant on the second floor, and it's their cousin or something. But my question is, will they also be putting forward usage-based? You mentioned things like multifamily versus business, whatever.
Sure. So that's just an example of the model. Any real form of tiered structuring, I would like them to look into. Again, we're just looking for something that the public feels is more equitable. So, yep.
Yeah.
And they can do the work for us and present us with some different options, and we can vote accordingly. Yeah.
So that the car wash isn't paying the same as the senior citizen?
No. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and and again, I echo your point concerning businesses versus residential. We're not in a position to be chasing any businesses out of town with the small amount of business that we have here, so I don't want to put the town in the position to be kind of construed in that way.
Sounds good, and I look forward to next steps with regard to the audit.
Great, thank you very much. All right, well, seeing no other questions, you have 1, 2, all right, 3. Thank you. Meeting adjourned, everyone. Thank you very much.